Hello, and thank you for joining me again today on the Finding Hope After Loss podcast. Today's episode is for anyone whose path to building a family doesn't look the way that they had imagined. I am joined by Rachel, who shares her journey through unexplained infertility, miscarriage, failed IVF, and an unexpected ectopic pregnancy, before she finally found hope through foster care and adoption. Rachel opens up about the grief of letting go of expectations and the powerful moments that led her to welcoming her children in a way that she never planned, but in a way that was always meant to be. Hello, everyone. Today I am here with Rachel. Rachel, do you mind telling us a little about yourself?
Sure, I'm happy to. My name is Rachel Fulginiti, and I live in upstate New York. I lived for the last 20 years in LA, and then 2 years ago I moved back to the area where I'm from in the Hudson Valley. So that's been a journey. I have 2 children through foster care that I adopted, a little boy who's 4 and a daughter who is 9, and they're incredible, my biggest teachers. I struggled really hard for about a decade to create my family, and now we're together and yeah, onward.
Do you mind talking a little bit about that journey?
Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to. So as I mentioned, I went out to LA. And when I went out to LA, I was an actor living in New York City after college. And I decided to go out to LA. And 30 days after I moved out there, I met a guy who ended up being my husband. And so it was completely unexpected. I wasn't going there. I wasn't looking for a relationship. I was going there to do my career. And then it was like, it just happened and it was great. So we were just, it was like wildfire, and we were married within like a year and a half after that. And we were just having the time of our lives. I was an actor and a singer, and he was a drummer, and he was sort of on tour. And then sometimes I would get to go on tour with him, or I'd be doing my own tour somewhere doing something. And so we just had like the time of our life. And then as I started approaching 40, I started realizing, there's this one thing that we haven't thought about yet. What about kids? And if we're going to do that, we need to do it soon. And so he said he was open to it. He wasn't at that time like gung-ho about it, but he was open to it. So we're like, all right, let's just be casual about it. Let's see what happens, like a lot of people do. And nothing happened, as happens to a lot of people. And so we went like that, though, for I would say like a year, maybe even 2 years, where we were like, all right, and then after that time, we're like, okay, this isn't happening. And so we started going to fertility experts, and I had what was then called, and I don't know if they're still diagnosing it this way, it was called unexplained infertility, which is not very helpful. It's not like a great, So yeah, I had unexplained infertility, which didn't tell me much. We did IUI, and I did everything under the sun. Like, I'm that kind of person who, like, when I decide I want to do something, it's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it happen. I was taking my temperature every morning. I was doing all the things, everything you can imagine. I tried. And nothing would work. And it became, as I think this happens to a lot of people, it just became like increasingly painful emotionally. And all my other friends were having babies and baby showers. And I was seeing everything on Facebook and Instagram, all this stuff. And like, it seemed to happen so easily for other people. And for me, it just wasn't happening. It was like the one thing in my life that I just couldn't make happen. And I remember being so frustrated by that. Like, man, if you decide you want to be a doctor when you're 50, like, you can still do that. It's going to be a long road and it's going to take a long time, but you can still do that. But that really, having biological children is that one thing that there is this time cap to it. And so, yeah, I wasn't able to make that happen. Then I sort of dropped everything for a while, and I got pregnant, and it was incredible. And I got pregnant naturally, and I couldn't believe it. And it was a dream come true. And this is after like several years. And so I just remember thinking, wow, this is like the best thing ever. And I called my family in New York and told them, and was so excited. The first ultrasound rolled around, and my husband couldn't come because he had a brand new job. And I said, oh, don't worry about it. It's fine. I'll go. Now thinking back, I'm like, what was I even thinking, like ever saying it's fine and like that I would go by myself either way. But that was me. I was just like, yeah, I'm cool. Don't worry about it. And so I went and they did not find a heartbeat on the the pregnancy. And so that was heartbreaking, shocking. Had to regroup after that. Took a really long time to deal with that pain. Decided to do IVF. Finally, I had been sort of against IVF, not against it for anyone else, but just for myself. I was always a little bit like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle IVF very well. The broad strokes are basically we tried IVF twice, didn't work. Then we were broke and we were like totally like in debt, not getting any younger. Time has passed and didn't know what to do. And so started looking at adoption and then eventually landed on foster to adopt. So that's sort of the whole trajectory.
Wow. And I mean, such a long journey, and you've kind of hit everything. I mean, infertility and loss. And I mean, did you ever have any idea that this would be how your journey turned out?
No, no way. No. I thought for sure that I would eventually get pregnant and then it would all make sense in retrospect and I would say, oh, this is why this happened and this happened and this happened, that brought me to this thing that I really wanted. And actually that did end up happening, just not in the way that I ever expected it to, which is adopting my children. I thought that I would just have a biological pregnancy. And, I was always like extremely healthy and health conscious, and I'd take all the supplements and do all the stuff and do the research. And, I just didn't think that would happen. No.
And it's so hard too, because I'm the same way. Like, I want to be in control of everything. And that is like the one thing you cannot control it. And it's
No.
so frustrating because, yeah, I was doing the same, like taking my temperature, like doing the research, doing everything. And it's like, I can't control this. And it's so frustrating.
It's so frustrating. And yeah, I think that in truth, I had been at war with my body for a really long time. If not over this, like before this, it was other things. And so I think that I think my mind wanted to control my body, and my body was just like, yeah, no, not with this. You could do it with a lot of things, but not this. It's not going to work that way.
Did they do much testing on you? I mean, I know they gave you the unexplained diagnosis, which
Right.
definitely is still a thing, unfortunately, but I was
Hmm.
just wondering if you felt like they did enough testing.
I don't. I think that also I was super emotionally charged and triggered throughout the thing. So I I kept on having to take breaks from it and go away from it for a while and then come back to it. I was just there was a lot of emotion. It was very charged for me. So I wasn't necessarily thinking totally straight, and I didn't have a lot of continuity of care in terms of working with the same person over a really long period of time. I kind of went to one place, and then after that got destroyed, I went to another, you know what I mean? So because what happened, another thing that happened with the pregnancy, so when I did get naturally pregnant and I ended up losing that pregnancy, I went home that day, and then I became in severe, severe pain. Or I think I had a DNC to just remove what was there, went into extreme pain, throwing up. I'm so nauseous, and there's something wrong with me. Abdomen, extended, just craziness. And they ended up taking me to the hospital, and I had to have emergency surgery. And it turns out I had another pregnancy that was outside of my fallopian tube that was obviously would have killed me had I not had this removed. So the biggest blow, so when I got the phone call back, they didn't know at that time what that was. And then when they did they found a mass. And then when they did the testing on the mass, they found out that it was indeed another pregnancy, and it was male DNA, so they knew it was different from mine and that it was another pregnancy. And so, yeah, I can't remember even why I was telling you that. Oh, just that I lost my fallopian tube. So I lost one of them in the surgery. So I only had one more. They had to take it apparently, which was also another big, huge thing for me of feeling this incredible loss that I couldn't even put words to because like I hadn't agreed to that. That was something that the doctor made that decision on the fly when he was, in the operating room. And I understand that and I've worked through it and I've come to acceptance. But at that time, I felt really like almost violated, like you took something without my permission. And I wouldn't have, that's not the choice I would have made. Anyway, long story short, he told me that, I would not be able to most likely ever conceive naturally. And so that the only other thing I could do was have the other tube removed and then do IVF. Apparently, it was something about if I had both tubes removed, there was like less chance that something could go wrong or be in the wrong place or something. That was his advice. And so I took that advice and I did that. And then it didn't work out. The IVF wasn't successful. And by that time I was getting like much older too. So yeah, I think that they never really told me what the deal was with my body. And that it's so weird to not know that definitively.
Yeah, I always hate the unexplained because I feel like there is a reason. Maybe you just don't know what it is, but there
Yeah,
has to be something causing it, right? So
absolutely.
it's just
Absolutely.
frustrating to not know.
It is. And even things like I was chronically low in vitamin D. And I kept on saying, like, there's something with this vitamin D. Like, I'm chronically low in vitamin D, but like they didn't put the pieces together. Like, I didn't have personalized care that would really go into depth about like my own situation and what I might need. And, I think that it was almost like a few years too early. Now I feel like the conversations are so much more specific and we can get more specific, especially with women's health. But then it wasn't like that.
And it's frustrating because I understand that, like with fertility doctors, their job is to get you pregnant. But it's
Right.
like at the same time, don't you think if things aren't working, you should do some more investigating and,
Yeah.
help figure that out? Because we're more than just a vessel to carry a baby. Like we have our health is important too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So when you were going through your infertility and losses, did you feel like you had a good support system?
No, I mean, not really. I had my husband and he was amazing. He was wonderful through the whole thing. I think with a lot of couples, something like this could really easily tear you apart. And I've heard that happen with couples before. But for my husband and I, it actually did bring us closer. And so I was super, super grateful for that. And for my dog who was just there every step of the way, like just laying with me in bed when I was, bedridden, and just what a sweetie he was. We lost him last summer at 17. So he was really there with us through everything, our first child. But in terms of friends, like I have friends and stuff, but here's the missing piece. Like when this was happening, and this was like, I'll say like 2014, 2015, like that, 2013, 2014, 2015, there really wasn't a lot of online discussion about this kind of thing. There weren't like, I mean, there might have been, but like it wasn't out in the public sphere of like support group for this or for that or whatever. Now it's like you can just search up anything and you can find some other people who are going through it or podcasts and stuff like that. But like at that time, there wasn't really anything like that was out there publicly that I knew about. So yeah, I suffered in silence a lot. I don't recommend it. It wasn't good. It
Yeah.
wasn't great.
It's already such an isolating time, and then especially to have nobody in your life that truly understands what it is that you're going through. It's really hard.
It is. I remember my aunt actually, she called me when she found out what was happening and she told me that she had had a miscarriage. And I also had a cousin who ended up calling me and saying the same thing. So I did have, like, from afar, I had some people who could be empathetic about it. But yeah, it's I didn't feel comfortable like sharing that much either. Like, I know some people, especially now, will like put it online and share about it, and I totally get that. But that I wasn't gonna do anything like that. So I really and I also had like a career that I was still very, very active in as a voice actor and audiobook narrator. So I also didn't want to like put all this stuff online, all this negative stuff. I was trying to like still be, you know, like the fun, successful, whatever that, how we airbrush our lives for online.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. We have to be pretending that we're the same person that we were, that we weren't affected by what happened, and let's
Yeah.
just move on and brush it under
Yeah.
the rug?
Yeah. Yeah.
So then what led to you deciding to foster?
Yeah. So for us, it was really the first part of the decision was really a financial decision. We had looked into adoption, and so international adoptions were like down, 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 and I think they still are. Like, a lot of countries were not doing it anymore. There's a lot of restrictions. There's also like age restrictions in some countries and stuff like that. And then domestic adoption, we had done some research. We were interested in open adoption. That's, I'm sure your listeners know, but that's where you would have a relationship with the birth mom and continue that forward. And that felt really positive to me and like a great way to handle it. But when it came down to it, it looked like it was still going to be kind of expensive, because if you get matched with a birth mom early on in the pregnancy, you're sort of taking on the care of her and any needs that she might have. And then, at the end of that, and you're paying a fee. And then also at the end of that, she might change her mind, which is her right. And I got that, but that is a reality. And this little voice kept whispering to me, like, I think there might be somebody out there who's like already here that needs you, that is meant to be a part of our family. And so I went with that, and we were very trepidatious at the beginning, because we had already been through so much heartbreak and didn't want to experience more heartbreak by caring for a child and then having to give them back, so to speak. So that was my biggest fear, was going through all of that and then it not lasting. So I worked really hard and prayed and visioned about being joined with the person that was meant to join our forever family, like that was their life path and that was our life path. And to really I was very conscious about trying to manifest that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And I feel like people kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like carelessly throw around like, oh, just adopt, like just do this. But it's really,
Right.
it's fostering and adoption are not easy things to go through. It's not like you
No.
just, I want to adopt and then you get a baby the next day.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a big thing. And honestly, it's the most difficult, hardest thing I've ever done in my life. But it was, the best thing I've ever done at the same time.
Was the process to get started on that difficult?
It it is a process. You start out with an orientation. So you go to an orientation, and then from there you sort of get a broad overview. Then you start to take classes. There's like prerequisite classes that you take. So you do a series of classes. And then there is what's called the home study, which is, it's a home inspection to make sure your house is safe and up to code and, good for a kid, depending on what age that child is. And then also the interview portion, which is like in-depth interviews with everyone who lives in your home about your history and your current life and lots of different stuff. And then there's like a million checklist items of like FBI live scan and, a bunch of, a TB test and first aid and CPR and like all of that stuff. So that whole process took us like a year just to complete all of that stuff. I know you could probably do it faster. I'm sure you could. But again, we were dealing with like emotional things. And so we kept on feeling like, are we sure we really want to do this? This is terrifying. And then, yeah, we ended up just moving forward on it.
When you're fostering, do you get to, like with adoption, kind of pick an age range that you're wanting, or is it just whoever needs it?
Yeah, you can do either. So we went through there. It's important to just make it clear that you can do it two ways. You can go straight through the county, or you can go through a foster family agency. And after doing some research, we were sort of counseled to go through an agency because you'll have somebody in the equation that's kind of there for you. Because when you step in to be a foster parent, no one else is really in the equation for you. It's only about the child. The goal is always reunification with the birth family or another family or close friend. So it's difficult to navigate. So yeah, we went through the agency. And then what was the other question? Why did I start saying that? I just lost it.
Oh, no, I was just asking if you get to decide like the age range that
The
you're looking
ages.
for.
Thank you. So yeah, especially I think when you're working with an agency, they're wanting to make sure that you are not taking on something that you aren't prepared for or don't want. So yes, they were I think the age range that we chose was like 0 to 4 or something. So you can make it even smaller than that, or you can make it larger. But yeah, you can choose an age range. You can choose the exposures that you're comfortable with. By that, I mean like substance abuse, different kinds of trauma. And, the advice that was given to us, because nobody wants any of that stuff, of course. Like, I don't want any trauma. I don't want any substance, use or abuse. But we were told, if you say no to everything, you're probably never going to be hooked up with a child. Like, you need to find out what you can be okay with. And so with that comes a lot of education about, well, what are the long-lasting effects of X, Y, and Z, and how can, what am I equipped to handle, and that kind of thing. So yeah, you make your determinations, and then once you're certified, they will call you when they have those children come up that need placements. The caveat is that they don't always have a lot of information right away about the situation. So you can tell them that you're interested in foster to adopt. There's no real true, that's another thing for people to understand. There's no true foster to adopt exact path unless the parental rights have already been terminated. So you can elect to only get placements that the rights have been terminated. But then you're looking usually at an older child who's been in the system for longer. So we decided not to do it that way. Once you start getting the calls, you can say yes or no. It was explained to us, like they tell you as much as they know, and then you make a determination and you say yes or no. So for me, for whatever reason, there was a bunch of different things. I was traveling, then I was sick, then I just it wasn't aligning. I said no to about 5 calls before I got the call from my daughter, and I finally said yes. And that ended up being incredibly like a magical story, like a magical gift. If you want to hear that story, happy to share it with you.
Yeah, definitely.
So I had gone to a healer, like a channeler that was suggested to me through my chiropractor when I had been going through all that trauma. And she said that, and I told her I'm so nervous about this phone call because they only designate one person to be the phone call taker if you're in a couple. And you're not even supposed to call your partner. You're just the decision maker and you just have to decide. So that's like a lot of pressure. Like we both knew I was going to be that person, but like I was also like really like nervous about that. And so she said, when you get the call, put your hand over your heart, close your eyes, and just listen. And if it's a yes, say yes. If it's not a yes, don't say yes. And so 5 times I got the call. I put my hand over my heart. I closed my eyes. Listen, no, I'm not getting a yes. Like, I'm not getting a yes. This particular time, I get the phone call, hand over my heart. She starts telling me what she knows about this child. And I'm like, I think it might be a yes. And then I said, can I do one thing? Can I please call my husband? Just let me call him really fast and just confirm that he's getting a yes. They said, okay. They were like, you're not supposed to do this, but okay, you have to call right back in like 5 minutes or we have to go on to the next person because this child needs a home and we can't like hem and haw and all of that. And I get it. And so I called my husband. He was at his job. He picked up on the first ring, which wouldn't normally even happen. I start telling him, I'm like, okay, there's this child. I start saying like what I knew. And he was like, yes, it's a yes. And I was like, it is, right? It's a yes. He was like, yes, it's a yes. So I called back and I was like, yeah, it's a yes. Cut to a lot of other weird stuff that happened. They call me back. We're like, okay, we have to go get a car seat. We have to do this. We have to get all of this stuff. He calls me back after I had said yes, the social worker, and he's like, I'm really sorry. Actually, this baby is it turns out she's medically fragile. So we can't, you're not a medically fragile certified household. So we can't like give her to you. And I was like, oh, okay. I really thought it was a yes. All right. Well, okay. That's whatever. Monday rolls around. That was a Friday. Monday rolls around and I'm in my agency for voiceover. And that day, it's all about babies. There's a pregnant lady in the lobby. There's another one who just brought her little baby in. You know, everyone's talking about kids, this and that. And a guy looks over at me and he goes, what about you, Rachel? You have any kids at home? And I was like, well, I almost did. I would have had one. And I tell them the story. No sooner than do I stop telling the story that I get a phone call. I look down and I'm like, oh, this is the agency. I call up the foster family agency. And they're like, remember that baby girl that we called you about on Friday? And I was like, yes. Well, it turns out she's not medically fragile. They just like redid whatever. Are you still interested? And I was like, yes. Oh my God. So ended up getting her. Last part of the story. This is the best part. I know this is very long-winded. I told you I can talk.
But it's a good story, so it's okay.
We're getting instructions to pick this child up from the hospital. And at a certain point, the social worker is saying all this stuff, telling us all this stuff. And I was like, oh, I forgot to ask, like, does she come with a name? And he was like, oh, yeah, let me see. And he's looking at the stuff. He's like, yeah, her name is Isabella Rose. And I looked at my husband and we lost our minds because when I had been pregnant years before, our top name, if it was a girl, was Isabella Rose. The exact same name, not just the first name, but like the middle name. It was just like magic. I mean, I started screaming and the social worker was like, what's the matter? And I was like, then laughing and crying happy tears because I was like, this is her. This is our baby. Like, there's no way this isn't our baby. Like, it's just, I know it's meant to be. And it was.
That is an amazing story. I mean, yeah, she definitely was meant to be your daughter.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
And then you have another one that you also fostered?
I do. And then my son, we had taken a break. After the whole fostering process took like 2.5 years. It was a very long process. Ended up finally adopting her. And then we were just exhausted. So we were like, let's put our fostering certification on hold. Let's just regroup because that was really hard path that we just traveled. And time was going by. And about a year and a half later, we decided, you know what, if we're going to do it again, we should try to do it again. And we updated our certification, didn't hear anything for like almost 6 months. We were thinking about leaving LA at that point. We went up to Sacramento for the weekend to just visit and see if maybe we wanted to live there. Coming back from Sacramento, my husband and I were like, I was like, I don't feel like we're done with LA yet. And he was like, I don't either. We're like, okay, weird. Then 2 days later is a Monday. That was a Saturday. It was his birthday. on that day. Monday, I get a phone call, safe surrender baby boy born Saturday, July 10th, which was 2 days ago, which was my husband's birthday. Now I'm getting a text saying that this child was born on that day, and he was a safe surrender, which means that the birth mother relinquishes the child safely at a hospital or a fire station. So that is like the dream that everyone asks in foster care, and they're like, forget it, doesn't happen, like doesn't happen. And it happened, and he was born on my husband's birthday. They share a birthday. So again, I felt like this is our kid. Like, this has got to be our kid. There's no way. That is just too weird of a coincidence. So then we stayed there, LA, 2 more years until he was adopted, and then we just moved 2 years ago.
Wow. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
both of those.
Oh
It's
my
like
God.
when things just work out like that. I
I
mean,
know.
it's
I
like it's
know.
just not a coincidence. It's just how it's meant to be.
It really is. I mean, I believe in that stuff. I think that, I just don't see how it can be discounted. It's just so, to me, it seems so obvious. But, there were so many struggles before that just were not meant to be. And then, it's funny, an acupuncturist said to me one time, and I didn't understand this at the time, and now I totally get it. She was like, everyone always ends up with the right baby. And I was like, what? And she was like, it doesn't matter how they come. So, they come biologically. Sometimes they come in other ways. She's like, but everyone always ends up with the right baby. And like, now I totally get that, because I just feel like my kids are they're so our kids.
Yeah, I'm sure
you
now
know?
you can't imagine it being any other way, right?
Yeah, I can't. I can't. I mean, it's like the closest you can relate it to, and this is not even a tenth of what it is, but when you have like an animal, like our dog that we had for 17 years, like they're a part of your family that you think of them as like I could have birthed this dog. You know what I mean? But like I didn't, but like I could have. That's how I felt about my dog. And that's how you end up feeling about your adopted kids, are like not your adopted kids. They're your kids, like just period, you know?
So you went in knowing that you wanted to foster to adopt, or were you just planning on fostering?
No, we went in knowing that we wanted to foster to adopt, which is difficult and not recommended, they say. But it's one of the reasons why I started I have a podcast. It's called From Foster to Forever. And I share foster to adopt journeys on there with real people who have gone through this, because I think that not enough people know that it is possible. It's not an easy road. It's certainly not a sure thing, but you can irrevocably change your life and the life of others, and then you might hit the jackpot and also get to have a forever family. Like, and I believe like if you do it eventually, I think you will get that, but you might have to go through some stuff before you get that. But I think it is a viable path.
So if you were going to give advice to anybody who's, thinking about fostering or doing foster to adoption, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I would say attend an orientation, talk to people who have actually done it, listen to my podcast or other podcasts that share these stories, so you can really be sort of mentally prepared, and you still aren't going to be 100% prepared, because there's so much about it that's unpredictable. So you need to practice what I really practiced. My mantra the entire time was, we are together right now. That's all we have. All we have is the present moment. And truly, in life, that's all we really have. We don't know what's going to happen. Nothing is promised. But it really makes you, I mean, it drives that home for sure. It's like, just practice being in the moment, practice being in the joy of the moment.
I think that's great advice. It's so
Yeah.
true. I mean, we don't, tomorrow's never promised, but
Oh,
we have today and we have the people we're with. And I
yeah.
think it's good to focus on that.
Yeah. 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 It was like a master class in that.
Well, is there anything else that you want to share, add about anything?
I want to say I'll speak directly to anyone who is going through an infertility journey or some other thing in their life that is preventing them from having a family or starting a family. There is hope. I have a vision for you, and I can hold that vision really clearly for you. And I want you to hold that vision for yourself, that you can have it too. I It took me so long and it was so hard, and I never thought I would see the day, but I have what I prayed for now, and I'm so grateful. And if there's anything I can do to help you, feel free to reach out to me on my website. Yeah, because you don't have to do it alone.
And if people were wanting to connect with you, what's your website and where can they find your
Sure.
podcast?
So the website is from foster to forever.com, and it's the number two. So it's from foster, the number two, forever.com. And there's a contact form on that website if you want to drop me a line. And the podcast is everywhere. It's on Apple and Spotify, and you can listen to it right there on my page. We're about to drop new episodes coming right up. And so that's exciting. It was supposed to happen Tuesday, but we had a snow day, and my kids, yeah, they prevented that from happening. But I think next week we're gonna be good for Tuesday of next week. And you can join me on Instagram at from foster. No, what is my Instagram? I'm sorry. It is foster2foreverpodcast.com. Foster the number two forever podcast.
Sometimes it's hard
Not
to
.com.
remember.
Just I know, because they're all slightly different. And when I
Yeah.
was getting like all of the things, there was like some fostering animals organization with like a very similar name that already had like the TO. So I had to get the two. And then for Instagram, I had to put podcast on it because, so it's
I
sorry.
can't remember all these things. Come
I know.
on.
I need to get better at like being like specific about what they are. But anyway, thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us and sharing about how people can find out more about fostering. I think you're doing amazing things.
Oh, thank you so much, Sarah. Same to you. Thanks for this podcast.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing your story with us. As we wrap up today's conversation, I hope that Rachel's story reminded you that there is no single right way to build a family, and also that grief and hope can exist side by side. Whether you're navigating infertility, healing after a loss, facing failed treatments, or if you're considering foster care, Rachel's journey is a powerful reminder that your story isn't over, even when the path changes. Sometimes the family meant for us arrives in ways that we never could have planned. If this episode resonated with you, please consider leaving a review for the podcast on Apple or Spotify, or share it with someone who might need it. You can find more information about the episode in the show notes at journeyforjasmine.com. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember, we are all in this together.